Welcome to our introduction to the European Language Grid, the primary language technology platform and language technology marketplace in Europe. Multilingualism is at the heart of the European idea and part of our European identities. But the many different languages also pose unique economic, social, and technical challenges to our modern digital society. Language technology is the key to enabling a European digital single market and allowing communication across borders, across cultures, and across languages. However, the market for language technology in Europe is highly fragmented.
Pues en Europa tiene las cosas.
Creo que no te entiendo.
Creo que no te entiendo. Porque eu falo en galego, sabes, Siri?
The European Language Grid, or ELG for short, solves this problem by offering a single platform for commercial and non-commercial language technologies in Europe, on which companies and research institutions can present, test, showcase, and sell their language technology tools and resources. Almost 1,800 organizations are already listed in the ELG platform, which by now includes more than 400 functional services and more than 3,500 corpora and other language resources. The ELG is constantly extended with additional tools and datasets. In this video, we want to show you how the European Language Grid works. This includes browsing the ELG, accessing resources from the catalog, and running services as a user, but also registering as a provider, describing your organization, and uploading your own resources into the ELG, such as language technology tools and corpora. At its core, the ELG is a catalog of language technologies and resources, with a rich metadata scheme, as well as a community of organizations and projects to which those resources can be linked. Browsing the ELG and accessing or downloading resources can be helpful if you're looking for European companies that can handle your business challenge in a specific field of natural language processing, if you need a data set to train a model, if you want to integrate a translation service into your website, or in many other cases. The catalog can be accessed through the main search bar by a simple free text search. Once you click the search button, you are also able to see all the different categories we provide: language resources and technologies, service functions, languages, conditions of use for data, and also the related entities, the organizations and projects. When you open an entry in the catalog, you can see all its metadata, including descriptions, tags, file types, the provider and their contact details, as well as information on whether or not personal or sensitive data is included. In the Download section next to the Overview tab, you can find information on how the resource is distributed and how it can be accessed. With more than 3,500 entries, the ELG corpora make up the largest portion of the catalog. Some of the corpora are stored directly in ELG and can also be downloaded from here. Others can be found ready for download from other sites via links. This includes metadata about resources that the ELG has harvested from other repositories and can be discovered through ELG. Our services and tools are categorized by their function and have similar overviews, but include further information, such as the intended application, input and output formats, function, documentation, and technical information. ELG services are Docker images that you can use directly on ELG, but that you can also download and run locally, depending on their license. The relevant information can be found in the Download/Run section. Many services can be tried out directly on the ELG website itself. However, you need to be logged in to access our tryout interfaces. We also provide code samples that help you use the functional tools. A service can be run by querying the REST API using the following command. Let's go back to the catalog. If you're looking for organizations or projects in the ELG, you can find a lot of helpful information on the entry page. For example, a description, keywords, project participants, and information on funding. When you click on Related LRTs, you can find all language resources and technologies that are connected to the project or organization. LRTs can be attributed to both a project and an organization at the same time. The entire catalog of the European Language Grid can also be accessed through our Python Software Development Kit, or SDK. If you're familiar with Python and want to browse the ELG and use or download its resources this way, all you have to do is install the ELG package installer. You can browse the catalog, download corpora hosted in the ELG, and even call services by using the ID found on the entry page. We provide a detailed tutorial on how to use the ELG Python SDK on our blog. You can find the link to the Python tutorial in the video description below. But what if you don't just want to use the ELG for resources and technologies, or browse the catalog for information on organizations and projects? What if you create your own tools and want to share them with others? There are many advantages to becoming a member of the ELG community and providing tools and corpora to the grid. Whether you work in a research center or in a company, the European Language Grid allows you to share the resources you create in your projects with other members of the community or with potential customers. Or maybe you have created a data set or service that is associated to a paper, and you want to make the results reproducible. For companies, the ELG also creates new and broad visibility in the extensive European language technology market. So make sure to register. Once you have created an account, you will be able to use the services or download a corpus. If you also want to add resources or tools to the ELG, you can become a provider by requesting the role after creating your account. Your request will then be reviewed by the ELG team and confirmed promptly. As a provider, you can create an ELG Catalogue entry for your organization or entries for your projects. You can contribute data resources like corpora, ontologies, glossaries, grammars, and models, and you can share your running services. The ELG also hosts data and runs services directly in the grid. An ELG resource can be created in the form of an XML file with a metadata record of your resource. If you want to provide a corpus, you can also upload zip files. For a running service, the ELG additionally requires a Docker image, which contains the tool. But more on that later. The metadata record can either be uploaded as an XML file or created in the ELG itself, using a dedicated editor. You can find both options in the My Grid section, which becomes available once you have registered and are approved as a provider. If you want to upload an XML file, you can specify whether the record is a work in progress for a resource that is delivered later, a record for an ELG compatible service, or an XML file for data that you want to upload afterwards. When you have chosen your option, simply drag and drop your file or browse for it. Instead of uploading an XML metadata file, you can just as well create it in the ELG. For this purpose, we provide a metadata editor, which you can fill in with all the necessary information. If your resource is a corpus, you will be able to upload the data during the process. If your resource is a running service, you can refer the link to the Docker image of your ELG service. Once your resource is created and syntactically valid in terms of its internal XML structure, you submit it for publication. The ELG technical team will review the metadata and either approve it or contact you in case some of the data is missing or incorrect. Your items and their current status can be seen in the My Items section, whether they are published, submitted for publishing, or validated. Here you can edit them or submit them for publication. Once a resource is successfully published, it cannot be edited anymore. Of all the types of resources that you can share within the European Language Grid, the integrated ELG services are possibly the most interesting ones. These are the language technology tools that you can make available to other ELG users. Your ELG services can be called via the ELG REST API or the ELG Python SDK. But the grid also lets users try out services via an interface on the service page. But what exactly is an integrated ELG service, and how do you create it? If you prefer a written and more detailed explanation, check out our technical documentation, which we have linked in the video description below. Services integrated in the European language grid consist of a metadata record and a Docker image, which contains the tool. The Docker containers run in the Kubernetes cluster of the ELG and are not directly accessible from the outside. They only communicate internally with the LT Service Execution Server through an internal LT Service API, which then communicates with the outside world using the APIs ELG offers. An ELG service must be compliant with the internal LT Service API specifications and use specific JSON format request and response messages in order to communicate with the LT Service Execution Server. There are 3 types of request messages: a text request, a structured text request, and an audio request. For the responses, the ELG works with 4 different types: annotation responses, classification responses, text responses, and audio responses. In order to integrate your service in the ELG, you have 3 options for packaging. You can upload your LT tool in one standalone Docker image compatible with the internal LT Service API, or you can use an adapter container if your tool is already packaged in a Docker image that is not compatible with the ELG. Thirdly, you can also let your LT tool run remotely outside the ELG infrastructure and let it be called by a proxy, packaged in a proxy container that is compatible with the API and integrated in the ELG. Let's have a look at what you need to create an ELG-compatible service. Your service must expose an HTTP endpoint for the language technology tool that uses the 7 types of JSON format messages, as mentioned before, in order to be compliant with the internal LT Service API. For this, many frameworks exist, such as Flask or FastAPI for Python or Spring for Java. Secondly, you must Dockerize your application and upload the Docker image to a Docker registry of your choice. You can use GitLab or Docker Hub, for example, and you can keep the Docker image private. All you have to do is provide us with the credentials so that we can download it. If you need help with the Dockerization, we provide examples in our documentation, which you can find linked in the video description below. So, let's sum up how you can provide resources to the European language grid in order to share them, have your tools tested, or create visibility for your language technology products or organizations. First, you create a metadata record in XML by either uploading a file or using our metadata editor. If you're providing an ELG-compatible service, you will also have to refer to the Docker image of your service in the metadata record. If you're providing a dataset and you want to host the data in ELG, you will need to upload the data as a zip file. Once all the data for your resource in the ELG is ready, you can submit it for publication. The ELG technical team will review your resource and validate it before it is published. And there you have it. The European Language Grid is a great place to showcase and test your language technology tools and resources. But not only that, you will also find a large database of resources from all over Europe, as well as a network of providers that you can easily get in touch with. As its primary platform and marketplace, the ELG works towards bringing together all European language technology developers and users for a successful multilingual language technology landscape, united in diversity.